have exposure to Bitcoin. Bottom line, we have a very, very unique set of events that are occurring right now, specifically in the crypto space. We have all these institutions, BlackRock, Fidelity, and a bunch of other companies filing for a spot ETF. And the reason why that is such a big deal is because if you've ever invested in Bitcoin in the past or purchased a crypto, you know how complicated that could be if you first start out and try and do it. And so there's two sides of that. One, there's the complexity that people typically freak out if they can't actually buy the Bitcoin or store it properly, et cetera. Number two is understanding the accounts that need to be set up and how easy is it to actually move money around in that ecosystem. People can also get freaked out by that as well. And so with these ETFs that are coming out, it's basically a dam that's being broken to have a bunch of money come into the system for BlackRock to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, Fidelity to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, and for people to be able to buy it in their own stock accounts and their brokerage accounts that they've trusted for years. Now, I'm a Bitcoin maniac, so I want to own my crypto. I want to own my keys. But for my grandma, my grandpa, they're not going to do that. So we're at this unique opportunity where it hasn't happened in our lifetimes as young entrepreneurs, but it's happened prior with gold, where they brought that as an ETF after they mined a bunch of it. And so right now, I feel it's like the best time to actually get involved because of the momentum and the pendulum that's happening with people actually being able to buy Bitcoin easily and have exposure to it in their portfolio. And there's prior runs that have happened in crypto. Don't get me wrong. People have made money, lost money. I've done the same, but this one's going to be different. And so that's the new mindset that you should have going into 2024 overall, is that, hey, this is a new year. This is a new set of obstacles, challenges, and goals or intentions that I need to set. But the big boys are doing that too, specifically around this asset class. And so don't watch what they say, watch what they do.
Man, that's good. I think that's really like important to hear from someone like you. What do you feel like is needed? Let's just, because I'm not a crypto person. I told you I've lost in crypto.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if people that are listening to this are crypto people too. They equally could be. But like, let me just ask a really dumb question. The dumb question is, if I never got into crypto, what's the best way to get into crypto?
The best way to get into crypto is to go on Coinbase, buy $5 worth of it, and then send it to your mom, brother, dad, etc., and have them send it back to you. That's the easiest thing to do.
Okay, so $5 on Coinbase, and then obviously my mom would have to have an account on Coinbase, right?
She can have a Bitcoin wallet, but if we want to keep it simple, both you guys can open up a Coinbase account.
Yeah.
You buy $5, send it to her, and have her send that money back to you.
And what does that do?
One, you go through and you actually buy the digital asset, which is a whole process in and of itself. But if you buy it and then you actually move it and send it to someone, you then start to get the aha moment where that was it. That was needed to go ahead and send money. I didn't have to go through a bank. I didn't have to send a wire. I didn't have to do that for, maybe a small amount is an easy way to move money through Zelle and stuff like that. But think about it on a bigger scale. I tried sending wires for, 50 grand, 100 grand, et cetera. Takes 3 or 4 days to clear. Sometimes you have to go in and do a signature or something online. And so that disruption of being able to move money between me and you without anyone's permission, and it takes maybe 30 minutes, that's a bigger deal than people realize. And so when you really understand it, I feel like people have to be tactical and tangible with it for them to get it. If you just buy it, hold it, and you don't know what's going on, that's one way to get exposure to crypto, but you don't understand the power of what Bitcoin represents. And so I think that's the first step that people should do, is see how it works and how it moves and what the core concept in action looks like.
Got it. Okay, so everyone listening on this, buy Bitcoin for $5 and send it to somebody. And so when you say send it to somebody, you're saying send it to somebody in terms of crypto or cashing it out and sending it? Like, what is that? Again, this is, I don't know anything about this, so I'm asking really dumb questions.
For sure. So I would buy $5 of Bitcoin and send that $5 in Bitcoin to your Bitcoin wallet.
Got it.
That way you can receive Bitcoin. You go through that process of understanding how to receive it.
So let's just say someone earned $1,000 gain in Bitcoin. Is it simple to turn into American dollars and cash that out?
Yeah, very simple. So just like how you would buy a stock, Apple stock, for example, it goes up 10% and you sold it on the exchange, you would have a 10% capital gain.
Yeah.
You can convert that to cash. Now, to get it into your bank account may take 2 or 3 days, but that's with every exchange that's centralized, right? So same thing that works with stocks works in crypto if you work with centralized exchanges. The only difference that people really don't wrap their head around, which took me a little bit while to do it as well, is the actual asset can move outside of the exchange. So for example, like Apple, you're not sending that to someone. You can't send Apple stock to someone just directly, right? You would buy it for them in their account or give them the money to go buy it. Whereas I could actually transfer that stock directly without anyone's permission. And actually I can pay for goods, I can pay for services,
so
I can
you pay for
that
things
stuff
in Bitcoin without transferring it to like American?
Exactly. I can do that. That's the power of it. But
do you do that or
I
no?
do not buy things in Bitcoin because I know where it's going price wise. It's a storehold of wealth.
So you're not spending your Bitcoin, you're holding it.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Do you recommend people do the same or?
Once they go through their first way of moving it,
yeah,
I think then they can understand what it is and how it's used.
Okay.
And then they can go put tens of thousands or a couple $100,000 in it itself.
Yeah.
But they first have to understand the fundamentals.
Yeah. Okay.
So
here's another dumb question. Do you feel like there's a benefit to buying things? I know you don't buy things in Bitcoin, but do you feel like there's a benefit to buying things in Bitcoin versus like credit or American dollars or
it's an interesting
centralized
question.
currency?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It depends on what the item actually is. Crypto can be used to facilitate a transaction. And typically in bigger quantities, if it's more of a direct sale, then yes, you can use crypto as the payment rails. The thing with credit cards is that you can get a bunch of points from it. You get the buyer protection and you're using other people's money in case that transaction goes wrong. So using credit, that's what I use for every single one of my transactions. That gives you so much more power and allow you to materialize a business reality faster, allows you to buy ads, allows you to buy that stuff because that was the intent of the product, was to have money go out and then make more money than what you spend. So that way you can just be a continuous cycle of money in, money out, et cetera.
Right.
With Bitcoin, it's a finite material. So as soon as I send it to you, there's no chargeback system. There's no one I can go call. That's why I'm saying use your mom or your grandma or whatever, that you can send it back and forth just to see how it works. But it's a good use for people that want a final transaction without any chargeback ability.
So you use crypto as more like an investment than like day-to-day currency exchange.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think it should be that way because Bitcoin is taxed as property in the United States.
So again, this is really dumb questions because I don't know better, but there's a lot of like talk in like the e-com world where it's like customers are buying in Bitcoin and offer Bitcoin, like offer to take Bitcoin on your e-com site. So if you're telling me like don't use Bitcoin to buy stuff, like what's this hype on the e-com world saying, hey, offer Bitcoin, offer crypto merchant accounts and stuff like that? Like, do you feel like there's a benefit to that or are you against that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in meeting the customer where they're at in the buying cycle. So if they want to use crypto, be set up for crypto.
Yeah.
You get to hold that crypto. You get to own that crypto. Awesome. But I'm a big firm believer because I came from a marketing background of just meeting people where they're at and making that as frictionless as possible. So I don't personally spend my Bitcoin.
Okay.
But other people can, but that's their decision.
Got it.
And that could be because they were gifted it and they don't want it. So they're just saying, hey, I'll buy this $50 t-shirt or whatever and just get rid of my Bitcoin. That's all I got. But if you have a sizable position in Bitcoin, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, you think about it differently.
That makes sense. Because it's more of an investment than like your credit card or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it. That's really helpful, man, because like I feel like a lot of people have these questions like, should I buy with my Bitcoin? Should I offer Bitcoin on my website? So what you're saying, just to kind of like recap this, is from an investment, you look at Bitcoin from an investment perspective, not a daily spend perspective. But you're not against like e-com sites offering Bitcoin because you're like, hey, if these customers want to buy a Bitcoin, let them buy with Bitcoin. Like, have you ever, because I know you were also in e-com, like, have you ever done that? Like, is there a gain to having like people to buy your stuff on Bitcoin versus the traditional routes?
Yeah. So at the time there really wasn't. It was like 2017, 2018. So still fairly new. And I don't necessarily think that we'll see a huge payments infrastructure and ecosystem take off to where people are buying things in Bitcoin on e-commerce sites to the scale that we use credit cards.
Got it.
Because we do know that there's people that drop ship. We do know that there's people that don't even send out the products. They just straight out scam people, especially if they're running Facebook and Instagram ads on, e-commerce stuff. So I don't think the consumer has enough infrastructure
Got it.
for them to feel comfortable yet, even if the payment gateway can be made, meaning the transaction can happen, but are you going to transact
There's just not
this way?
enough trust for that. Right?
I don't think that the crypto market has matured enough and has reached a level of adoption to the consumer base yet, because largely Bitcoin has just been really made with investments from retail until recent, with all these institutions getting involved. And everything has happened to the crypto market. There's been great actors, there's been bad actors, there's been scam people. People have used it for the Silk Road and used stuff to purchase back in the day. But now it's in a different stage. Just like, the baby grows up and goes through adolescence and now, is more mature. That's what's happening right now in the asset class.
Got it. That makes sense. So where do you feel like, because I know like crypto, like outside of Bitcoin, crypto, generally speaking, has evolved a lot since the pandemic. I mean, we're talking about NFTs and like a lot of different plays with crypto. Like, where do you think like crypto is at now? Like, do you feel like NFTs are relevant? Are they worth looking into? Like, do you feel like there's any evolution from those days going into 2024?
Yeah, so I'm not really a big believer in NFTs the way that they were marketed back in the day.
Okay.
Because
it's funny you say back in the day, it's like only 2 years ago.
Yeah, crypto moves so fast. I mean,
crazy.
It's like 5 years in another industry is like 1 year in marketing. And I use the same parallel where it's like a month is like a year in crypto. A week is like a month and a day is like a week. Like it just moves so fast.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at NFTs, and I know a lot of people that have had projects take off and are successful, sure. But at the end of the day, it was just a way to raise capital for a business. And a lot of the projects that are in development now for those NFTs or, actually sold out their collections, there's a business model that has to be behind it, because now they have the capital, means that they have to budget, they have to forecast things. What is their product? New sales of NFTs. So it's a business, and that's just the quote unquote product of registry. And I think NFTs have gotten now to a point where it's more of a marketing gimmick rather than some breakthrough technology of, hey, this can be on the blockchain. Yeah. Because anything can be on the blockchain. A health record could be on the blockchain. No one gets super excited about that, right? It was just that a lot of artists came through. It was a great way for artists to sell their art or their album work or whatever the case is. I think there's a lot more maturing in that market as well. But Bitcoin's been around for 10 years and we're just now starting to get institutional adoption. So these things take a lot longer than people think. And yes, there are these very, very quick pump and dumps and stuff like that. I don't partake in those because it stresses me out. You got to be in and out at the right time. Yeah. And I've played with it to understand it. But again, back to the original concept. First, understand what you're investing in and see if it's the game that you want to play. It's like I bought NFTs back in the cycle on Solana. I had a snail or whatever. I bought it. It went up by 100%. I sold it. So I bought two of them. I doubled my money on one. And then the next day, the whole exchange went down and just totally rug pulled. Wow. So I went out with zero, but I was like, there's too much going on here. And the people's greed behind the scenes is what drives these kind of rug pulls.
Man, that's crazy. Like I don't think I'll ever become like an enthusiast of crypto just because like I feel like I'll have a heart attack. It just sounds too extreme, man. Like I think it's like to do well in crypto, you have to have like the heart for that and like the discipline. I don't think I could. Like I told you my experience with Bitcoin and that freaked me out. Like I was like, I'm not looking at crypto again.
Well, you know what's something really interesting about that is I have a lot of buddies of mine in the marketing space. Okay. And they say the same thing because think about it. Our skill set is being able to deploy cash and get a 5 ROAS on it or a 4 ROAS. It's predictable and we know the variables that control the return.
Yeah.
Ad copy, the creative, the actual links to the site, the product pages. How is that actually converting? And there's statistics between each thing. And our job as marketers, as e-commerce entrepreneurs, et cetera, is to just condense the friction of the purchase, which is all the conversion rates in between, and essentially get the sale. Yeah. So when you have a predictable system like that, how I look at it is because my whole thesis is digital cash flow to then create digital wealth. You can play this game forever. Like that's your skill set. That's the bread and butter. But what are you doing to preserve your buying power? What are you doing on the investment side? And that's the bridge that I try and talk to my friends about, especially in marketing or ecom, because you're hunting and killing every single day with ads. You're hunting and killing every single day by depositing new beliefs into your system, understanding the customer avatars better, and you're going through the cycle over and over and over. And that's your active income. That's your active work. Whether you have an agency or not, that's what it is. So when you get into the investment side, some people like to just have tried and true stuff that is archaic. That could be, stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, etc. They start going down the rabbit hole of gold, but there hasn't really been a lot of movement there. So how they're earning money and how they're storing money, they're two different mindsets and two different beliefs. But it's funny because it's so mechanical the way that marketers look at their ad accounts, their capital, and their money. They don't look at it on a longer term horizon because in ecom, the cash conversion cycle is the same day. High ticket services should be under 30 days. So that way you can continue to pay off your card and continue to go. But I think it's funny because I always have that conversation with my guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're right, man. Like in marketing and e-commerce and business in general, like if you scale, it's because you built a system that gives you the peace of mind that it could scale, and then there's a lot of KPIs that come with it. But when it comes to crypto, like there's no KPIs. There's no, like, at least from my perspective, there's no predictable system unless I don't know where I'm looking. It just gives me like pure anxiety. Like, damn, man, like you don't know when the market's going to crash. You can't do stuff to predict a higher return or a guaranteed return, or at least any type of return. Like there's nothing someone from an investor perspective could do. Like in real estate, like you could buy a crap property and fix it, and that gives you the KPIs to flip it and get a return. But in crypto, like you buy Bitcoin, and just like me, I had high hopes and then it dipped. Like, is there anything real in terms of like predicting a return? Is there something someone could do, or is it just like completely unpredictable?
Well, it's not necessarily unpredictable. Bitcoin is very volatile because it doesn't have a lot of liquidity. When you compare it to markets like Forex, when you compare it to markets like equities or even commodities, these are long-standing markets that have been developed. And even if we look at oil, there's so much money made in oil and being traded in oil every single day, which is why the US dollar is such a big component of that, and why we as America have our own, systems around oil and, monetary controls. But the liquidity not being in the ecosystem is two sides of the same coin. It's either opportunity or people get freaked out by it. It's a growing market, so you have to be able to stomach it. And if someone isn't able to stomach the constant looking at it and stuff like that, easiest peace of mind is to buy some, don't look at it, and just store it away. Like, forget about it.
So it's like you buy it knowing that you lost it already.
Yeah, you should do that with all your investments too. Okay. I mean, with real estate, I don't like real estate. It's funny. I have a condo now in Miami, and like 7 things broke within the first like 60 days. And man, I hated people coming in and out of my place to fix, plumbing issues and just stuff like that. And I was like, dude, if I was doing this through a third party with a management company involved, like that would be the only way. If there was so much distance between me and that property, but then it's not even sexy to me. I don't have any true ownership of it. I'm just looking at it as a financial statement. And I get real estate has the tax benefits. That's the only thing I obviously do like about it, because you can depreciate it. But I understand digital very, very well. Yeah. And man, managing real estate, it would be such a pain in the ass and so annoying. So I don't like it at all. Now, the funny part was actually, on a forum earlier this morning, this guy was saying, Bitcoin is so manipulated, I'm going to stick to real estate. I'm like, dude, real estate is also manipulated. It's manipulated by what? The interest rate from the Fed. So if they raise the interest rates, the mortgages become more expensive, which typically means the home values go down. So if you bought a home property at this price or whatever, and the interest rate went up, that means the value of the property goes down. Now, if you locked in a great mortgage, whatever the case is, at a fixed rate, you can have that value be preserved, but you're betting on your location. You're betting on the interest rates and what's actually going there. And if you want to stay at that property, that means that you have to maintain that property the entire time. I like freedom. I want to be able to pick up, go, go wherever I want in the world. I've been traveling over the past 2 to 3 years. I've gone to some great countries. And you can't do that if you have the responsibilities of physical assets around, like cars or other responsibilities, right? And when you look at the predictability of real estate, it's just like another business. You have to make sure that that person's cash flows are paying off your mortgage. You have to make sure that the renter is actually not only brought in properly, but that they have enough income and that they're smart enough to, not blow up their own housing and stuff, like their payments. So I know a lot of people go into Section 8. That's, again, secure, but it's a volume game. So I like Bitcoin only because, again, it gives me the freedom. It allows me to actually take my wealth with me wherever I want. Because real estate, you can get it confiscated. If you piss off the government, boom, done. They take property taxes every single year. What is that? They don't take property taxes under Bitcoin.
But they do tax Bitcoin, though, right? When you pull out,
just like equities, you could pull out of an Apple position.
But if you don't pull out Bitcoin, you don't get taxed.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And so the game of accumulating wealth is to purchase. In the old days, it was equities, purchase stocks, purchase these things, and take loans against them to then go buy other assets. They're called pledged asset lines. So you go.
Is that still a thing today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's cool about that, at least with Schwab, because that's who I use, you can take out a pledge asset line for like 4 to 7% of the amount that you took out. So if I have $1 million and I want to take out 100 grand, I take a loan. I have a 4 to 7% interest rate on that. It's similar to an insurance policy where you buy it, you can take a loan out against the insurance policy, and they call it the infinite banking thing. Well, you can do that with any asset. You can do that with your real estate. You can collateralize your home. It's called HELOC. You can collateralize your stocks, pledge asset line. You can do this stuff to then go accumulate more assets over time. So the same thing can apply to Bitcoin. Later, they tried doing it this past cycle, but because there's a lot of volatility, because there are some institutional foundations and fundamentals that are needed, that's why I'm so bullish on it in 2024, because that's finally coming into the market. And so the more that you can accumulate down the road, 3, 5, 6 years from now, you're looking pretty.
Oh, so are you suggesting from a financial professional point of view that people also go into 2024 bullish in the market?
I'm not a financial professional. This isn't financial advice.
Ain't financial advice, guys. Not financial having a conversation.
Advice. However, yeah, you have to have exposure to Bitcoin. Bottom line. The gain is in Bitcoin right now. The gain isn't in Apple. How much farther can Apple go up? It's just going to continue to accumulate companies and buy new things. So that's a really big blue chip stock. It'll probably be around for a long time, but they don't pay out a dividend. Even though they sit on like $150, $200 billion in cash, they're not paying out dividends because everyone wants that stock, so they don't need to, right? Bitcoin doesn't pay a dividend as well, but the growth is so much bigger than what you would with Apple. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's helpful, man. This crypto talk is interesting because I haven't really had a conversation like this about crypto, and I was able to ask these questions I've been researching. But it's helpful to know that there's hope in crypto, just because I know people like myself lost, and on the internet, people are just talking trash about crypto and all these real estate guys or just financial guys that are not for it. Just last question before we go into a different topic, man, is where do you see crypto playing a role in businesses, if there is a role, going into 2024?
It's a good question. The word crypto is used a lot. It's thrown around. So there's a big difference between Bitcoin and crypto. And then there's also a difference between Bitcoin and crypto and something called CBDC.
CBDC, what is that?
Central Bank Digital Currencies.
Okay.
Our US dollar is already digital. They just printed 40% of it over the past 2-3 years. If you haven't been paying attention, they didn't actually print that money. They just put a figure in the system and said, hey, now we have 40% more. So pretty insane, right? They just issued new debt. But what that means, Bitcoin's going to have its own place. Most people will say it is a store of wealth, and that is a finite asset, just like gold. It's digital gold. The crypto people, those are like the companies, like Apple, Samsung, etc. You're betting on their tech, you're betting on their teams, you're betting on their collaborations, and that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's a market for that. There's also the central bank digital currency side. And so where it will impact businesses is once the governments roll this out fully, we just don't have a public blockchain yet, but it's already been in development for years. Once that's rolled out fully, just like you transact with your credit card, instead of using plastic, it's going to be digital. So that transition is going to be seamless. And so that business owner is going to just adopt a new checkout system. And it's going to be used on a new blockchain.
Do you feel like that's coming this year or next year, or is it?
I don't know when exactly it'll come out because of all the regulatory discrepancies that are out there when it comes to CBDCs or the XRP case and stuff like that. However, the Fed is in no rush to launch it, but they are already working on it. They've already run pilot programs with the banks. They're already doing it. But like I've just developed a software for our algos for crypto, which is a totally different topic. Software takes longer than people expect.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a monetary system for the entire world to follow and to be on, I would not try and put a launch date on that. I would want to make sure that there's no glitches in the system.
Yeah, that makes sense. So do you feel like we're going to experience that in our generation, or is it like...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
5 to 10 years. Yeah, that's relatively close. And yeah, so what's interesting about all that is when you look at money, what is money? It's your energy stored into something. Service, product, or it's someone else's energy, right? So if you amass millions of dollars, it's not like someone just gave it to you.
Right.
It was through services, through some sort of labor or some sort of arbitrage. Okay. So if that money can get devalued by 40% because of decisions of other people, well, it doesn't mean that you have to work 40% more. It's that you have to either charge more, find better arbitrage opportunities, or actually find an asset that can outpace what's occurring on the inflationary side or what's going on the debasement of currency. So when people go into Bitcoin, the reason why it's a storehold of wealth, and people will phrase it that way, is because it provides better returns than inflation. So you're beating the arbitrage of how much they're printing versus how much you're making. So if you make $100,000 now, it's not going to be that same $100,000 is not going to be the same $100,000 in 10 years from now. It'll probably be $300,000, $400,000.
Right.
We hear it from our grandparents all the time. A nickel bought them fucking 5-course meals everywhere.
Right.
You know,
Like
nickel doesn't buy you anything now. So it's the same thing. It's that value of the dollar going down over time. And so again, when we won that war, World War II, we were the new world order. So we were this big power and we can just issue as much debt as we wanted because no one can challenge us. But now there's other alternatives that are out there that make you question, hey, should we do this system? Should we do the BRICS system, which is the Chinese currency and their whole collaboration that they're doing?